Hey everybody, this is Greg Gould interviewing Jula Bell Leby for Punk Globe. Hey Jula, how you doing?
Hi, great to see you, Greg.
Good seeing you too. So who or what got you into the idea of playing music? And was there a specific situation that you suddenly had an epiphany?
I came from a really musical family. My mom kind of did this Joan Baez thing where she would play guitar and sing, kind of folk music.
Hmm.
But my whole family was quite musical and we'd sing in the car a lot. And I'd be in choirs, I'd be in plays, but I loved to sing and I was always singing. I was always, whistling and singing, and it was like my happy place. And I didn't really ever really have an epiphany per se.
Sure.
But I always had a penchant for performing.
And you once had mentioned at some point you started taking lessons from a lady in the neighborhood and she got you listening to like Nina Hagen.
Oh, actually, so I was in high school and I wasn't sure what I was gonna go to college. I wasn't sure what my major was gonna be.
Mhm.
And I started taking voice lessons from Loretta Giles, and she actually taught Nina Hagen. So I would have my class,
Really?
and then Nina Hagen was in there trying to get back the top of her range, which she had lost from, you know,
Wow.
a
Okay.
moon back. So she would have classes, but she wasn't teaching me to be like Nina Hagen. I was just in there doing voice lessons because that's what I like. Everyone has their skills. For me, like their natural gifts was for me, it was singing. So
Hmm.
I was in there, and the teacher Loretta said, you can do this. You can do opera. And I was like, what? And for me, it was more of a novelty more than
Sure.
anything. It wasn't really like, oh my God, opera's in my veins. And I felt bad because I ended up going to music school and I went to Boston, and everybody was like, oh, I've been studying opera all my life and this is my biggest dream. And for me, I was just like going to punk shows every night and like doing it because I could do it, but I didn't have the passion, and I also had kind of a unique style where I would say maybe some of the opera aficionados might call it blasphemous, not in
Hmm.
a Hagen way, but I would just kind of roll around and do my own version, which I was cool with, and some of the teachers loved it, but
Sure.
some of them would be rather upset.
Well, it's like an outsider's approach to a discipline.
Yeah, I
You
just
had a different take,
I
a
had a
different approach.
different take. Absolutely. But I do love opera, but it was never like my life's dream. It was just more of like, oh, I'll major in this. And it opened up a lot of windows, and it also helped me a lot with the punk stuff
Hmm.
because I could sing every night, whereas a lot of people were having trouble, because I had the opera technique
Hmm. Hmm.
underneath all
And so
that.
you are a rare LA native and you went to uni high.
I did.
A lot of people came out of uni high.
I know. I saw your question, and I said, I knew, that some of Boingo Boingo went there. I knew Marilyn Monroe went there. I knew that Robert Redford went there. I knew that
Okay, those I didn't
Jane's
know.
Addiction, huh?
Jane's Addiction.
Well, I mean, Eric Avery was like a year younger than me.
Hmm.
I was in Tone Loc's class, which was funny. We used to play basketball. I knew him since middle school.
Wow.
Anthony Smith. Yeah, I know the funky comedina.
Yeah.
But I actually I looked it up, and there were some more names that I was kind of surprised about. One of them being Annette Funicello, Patricia Krenwinkel of the Manson family,
Hmm.
Brian O'Neill, Herb Ritz, Nancy Sinatra, Steve Wynn, Robbie Kruger of The Doors, Kim Fowley,
Sure.
Sandra Dee, Nels Klein, David Cassidy. Kim
Wow.
Gordon was on that list, which I had no idea. The Germs went there, Pat Smear from the Foo Fighters and the Germs, and
Hmm.
Paul Roessler and Kira Roessler. Um, so the guys from Sugar Ray, the guys from Rage Against the Machine went there.
Really? I didn't know that.
I had no idea. And there's more. There's like
It's like a hot spot in
Yeah, just
LA.
like
Just
Olympian athletes that were
totally,
there
totally.
and like huge producers. I mean, I went to school with this guy named Brad Grumberg and Greg Grumberg, and they're like big actors and producers. But
Yeah.
yeah, uni was a hotbed, not just Marilyn and Robert Redford.
So given that, like, so what kind of like music were your friends throwing around, or like clubs did people start going to that you remember going to and things like that?
Well, when I was in high school, well,
Hmm.
it started in middle school, my interest in music. And it kind of started with like the Talking Heads, and then we'd listen to K-Rock and we'd listen to Rodney and such. So it kind of started with, the Clash and like Black Flag, Talking Heads, Devo, uh, Joe Jackson, English Beat, stuff like that. So, and in school, there was at uni, there was like very, there were the mods, and then there were punks, and then there were the new wavers, and then there were the socias and the stoners that would listen to like Sabbath and such. So, like, there were all these little areas where everyone would have their little hangout. And if you
Hmm.
wanted to hang out with them, you dress kind of like them and hang out in their little area. For me, I liked all kinds of music. And I was kind of an athlete when I was younger. Not a great athlete, but I was kind of athletic.
Hmm.
And I liked the punk, but I didn't look real punk in high school.
Okay.
But punkers were always surprised that I loved punk music.
Right.
Like
Just didn't have that exterior, but you.
they were just wow, like when I liked the Kinks or I liked Flag, they'd just be like, wow, like they were, like that was cool. So I was kind of, I had a bunch of different social groups, but when we were kids, we were too young to really get into clubs, and there's no way that my parents would let me go to the Mask.
Okay.
I was a little kid.
Hmm.
So we would go to dance clubs, and we would go, like when I was really little, like we would go to, there was a club called the Odyssey, and it was on Santa Monica Boulevard in West Hollywood.
I remember the audit. I remember like being a passenger driving by it and seeing it.
Yeah, it was just a big dance club, and it was all new wave and ska with a little bit of punk, but mostly that was mostly new wave. And then there was Seven Seas we used to go to, and Seven Seas was more ska and some new wave and some more punk stuff,
Hmm.
or like early proto punk. And then we even went to Florentine Gardens. I mean, I was just a little kid.
Right, right, right.
No, so I wasn't really cool enough to like, even though my first big concert was like 1980 when I saw the Talking Heads at the Greek. I mean,
Wow, very cool.
that was a cool first concert on my
Mm.
own, going with my friend on the bus.
Hmm.
But like I think I remember being a kid and going to like Perkins Palace in Pasadena, more of the all ages venues, like
Sure,
Roxy and Whiskey would be all ages.
sure.
And it wasn't until I got a little older and cooler,
Hmm.
became a
Hmm.
singster, that I went to all the clubs.
So then tell me, like how you got to meet, say for instance, I might be jumping around, but Bill Stevenson and how that kind of shaped you into the musician you became, or how it shaped you musically.
Well, I think I went away to Boston when I was 17
Hmm.
to go to college, and I took it as a good opportunity to go out every night to shows. So I would go to this club called the Ratskeller. I had a fake ID, also called the Rat. And I would go and see all these bands that would come in from out of town. Like that's when I would really get the freedom to go. Because when I
Hmm.
was in LA, I didn't have a car and it was just like riding the bus or trying to get a
Sure.
ride. So I really boned up on a lot of the LA bands. That was probably 1983. That
Okay.
was 1983. 1983, 1984. So I would see a lot of these LA bands like the Dickies and TSOL and Black Flag and
Hmm.
um, you know, tons of bands. And it felt like I was homesick. So it felt like home. It was really nice. I'm trying to think if I saw X out there. No, I think I saw X in LA, but X was another one of the early concerts. But I literally ended up working at a club and just going to bands every night. So when I got to LA, I remember meeting Jennifer Finch through my friend Jack Gould, which I'm sure you've been asked before if you're related to Jack Gould.
I who's Jack?
Jack Gould is from LA. He was in a lot of early punk bands or like mid era punk bands and
Okay.
garage bands like Trash Can School and Black Angel's Death Song, but he was a friend of mine from elementary school who turned me on a lot of great music when I was
Right
a kid,
on.
like the Kinks and Flag.
Hmm.
But I basically, I'm trying to get my brain back on because that got me off. So uh, I met, I saw Jack Gould at like a TSOL concert, and he introduced me to Jennifer Finch,
Okay.
Jennifer Precious Finch, who
Hmm.
ended up later being an L7. And Jennifer and I just became pals. And with Jennifer, I became a scenester. I started going all the cool guy clubs like the Zero and like all the cool parties. And that's where I really met so many people. But Jennifer and I went to a party. We had a friend, she introduced me to Tony Alva. So Tony Alva's band was playing. They were called the Scoundrels.
Very
And they were
cool.
playing at Neptune's Net. Neptune's Net is like a was like a dive on PCH.
Okay.
And so basically, right below it was the beach. And Dave Travis, who did a lot of Generator shows back then, he put on
Hmm.
a show with the Descendants and the Scoundrels. And there weren't a lot of people there, but it was my first time seeing the Descendants. And the guys were so nice to us. And we ended up hanging out. And somehow I ended up hanging out with Bill. And then we ended up dating. And Jennifer, at the time, I was hanging out with Doug Carrion.
Okay.
So her and Doug didn't last real long, but Bill and I, we ended up dating for 2.5 years. So Bill was a great influence on me because he really taught me how to be in a band,
Hmm.
how to have your band be like a family. And he would jam with me for hours and hours and hours at DCH. And my bass skills really improved,
Hmm. Hmm.
with Bill. Because before that, I was playing, but I sort of I had played guitar a little bit. But then once I got a bass in my hand, I was like, oh,
That felt a little bit more your style.
yeah, I was like bass.
Right
So
on.
I would play bass, and I was even in a band with Jennifer Finch. It was more like a girl gang called the Fags.
Hmm.
But it was a fun band. We ended up doing a couple of the songs in Bulimia Banquet from the Fags. But like really, I learned how to jam because before I didn't really know how to jam, and
Right. Okay.
Bill just Bill loved to just jam for hours and hours and hours. It was and he was a very supportive boyfriend,
Uh-huh.
about me musically, and he would just brag about me because I was in art
Sure.
school at USC.
Uh-huh.
I came back from Boston, went to USC.
Hmm.
Brag about me all the time, which made me feel good. And yeah, it was fun. We had a good time.
Very cool.
Yeah, I also learned some things that I had to unlearn. Bill, not musically.
Right on. Yeah,
Relationship
yeah.
things that I had to unlearn a little bit. But so when I was with Bill,
Uh-huh.
he was my boyfriend, and then I was in a band with Mike Healy, called Cactus Dick.
Okay.
Yeah, and I was in a band with him and Adam Baum. It was all KXLU DJs. Uh,
Okay. Okay.
Ray. Yeah, so those guys probably all knew Billy because
Yeah, well, it's funny. I didn't know him like that, because
they're all
so I didn't
KX.
know. So he DJ'd at KXLU too, and that's how
Oh,
you guys kind of
Mike
formed
Healy.
Cactus
Yeah,
Dick, or he just was around and
no, he was a
played.
DJ. His name was Nick Nax.
Got it.
When I was a kid, I always wanted to be a DJ. So like I would hang out with like these KXLU DJs, and I get to play records like I always wanted to do. I really wanted to be a DJ.
Mm.
But I remember being like 16 and calling up KXLU and going, I'd like to be a DJ there, and they're like, well, you have to go to school here. And maybe, and I was like, oh, bubble burst. And
Right on.
I guess I could have gone to Loyola.
Mm. It's all local. So being in college then, I'd heard a story about a barn party that you threw.
So I had this barn party at my folks' farm, and my folks were going to Europe, and I asked my dad if I could have a party there, and that I told him we'd paint the barn. We had a big red barn, and it needed some painting. And surprisingly, he said yes. And there were over 200 people there, and there were bands, there were musicians, there were artists. You know who Mark Yash is?
Yes.
Mark
Yeah.
Yash, the painter that,
Yeah.
he came there. And he was like, "What?
Really?
You have to paint the barn?" But everybody, it was so much fun. And I had so many bands. I mean, I had Celebrity Skin, Nip Drivers. I had members of Thelonious Monster playing with members of Red Hot Chili Peppers. It was Raw Zebra, Lawndale. It was Cactus Dick. I had Jane's Addiction for Show was there at the
Wow.
barn party.
Wow.
They were called Psycom Goes Illuminatic at the time.
Huh.
And it was their very first show with Eric Avery. It was
Wow.
Eric and Perry. I think it was just them.
Okay.
And then somehow everybody ended up on acid and was sleeping in the hay. And it was like an epic event that people talked about for years. And I was grounded for life pretty much after that event.
Right.
But, I got to say it was worth it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So, you mentioned that your third show with Bulimia Banquet got covered by Flipside magazine.
Yes.
Um, did Al Flipside show up? Like, what did that do for you guys when that happened and you realized, oh man, Flipside covered us?
Well, it was interesting. It was a Juice Factory show with a ton of bands on it. I mean, L7 was on it, Rhino 39, Foam Decoys. I don't, Celebrity Skin might have been on it too. I'm trying to remember. Yeah, I think Celebrity Skin too. Um, we did, I didn't really know Al personally at that juncture of my life.
Sure.
So when we got on the cover, our minds were blown. Like all of a sudden, we were able to tour and go wherever we wanted,
Amazing.
and we were a big band, like
Yeah.
just the cover. But Bulimia Banquet was a very unique band. It was punk and it was metal, and it was just really different, kind of in the way maybe that like I'm trying to think who maybe Surfboard is kind of unique, like a band like that now, where it's just like you
Sure.
can't really put them in a category.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just this powerful craziness going on that you're like, oh my God. Like all these people with different interests that all love the germs coming together and playing this crazy music.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I was also in music school, so I was writing these crazy bass lines, and I had just come off of like being with I was with
Right.
Bill Stevenson.
Yeah.
So I was writing, like trying to write these crazy bass lines so I could impress Bill. And make things that were so it was so hard to play.
Right.
And I was just like, and like now I'm just like, what was I doing? But it was an amazing band, and people would compare it to Sonic Youth, but we were nothing like Sonic Youth. Just because
Right.
like a girl playing bass and like playing difficult, crazy stuff
Yeah, sure.
and screaming. But we weren't like Sonic Youth. I mean, Sonic Youth was very we were very different. Like I said, you can't really put us in a box.
Right, because like as I was listening to some music and that song, for instance, like Scatcore and stuff like that, and yeah, it's a totally different vibe than
Totally
Sonic
different
Youth.
vibe.
But
Yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, I could see people trying to make some kind of a connection, but yeah, very, very different.
People were just grasping at straws. Like by that album,
Hmm.
we were starting to get our thing, and it sounded like a Bill Stevenson band because he produced it.
Sure.
He and Stefan produced that second album.
Hmm.
And I wanted to, it sounds like Bulimia Flag, uh,
Right.
a little bit.
Nice. Yeah, yeah, a little mashup there.
But the
Yeah.
first album is just like, holy crap. I mean, the second one too, like and the lyrics that I wrote were crazy. There was a guy in the band who was the drummer who came in the band when he was like 14 years old.
Wow.
So, but he was really funny. And he would have a lot of like inside jokes that were really potty humor,
Hmm.
such potty humor. And so I would write lyrics to just crack him up and make him laugh. And we would just laugh and everything was a joke, like things that we did in the van. So a lot of stuff was inside jokes that it's kind of I listen to it now and I'm like, wow, that's really dirty.
And it quite fit with the music though, because it was like kind of like a jokey kind of a yeah, just a very specific
Yeah.
sound.
We recorded with West Beach
Okay.
recorders. I think Bulimia did both of their main albums at West Beach.
Got it. Okay.
The first one with John Girdler, and it was produced by Pat Smear and John Bowles and the band and Al Hansford.
Hmm.
And the second album was at West Beach, produced by Bill and Stefan from Descendants.
Sure, sure, sure. And you had mentioned before Doug Kieran. Tell me about that guy.
Oh, Doug Heron?
Yeah, he was like a booking agent for funk bands in Europe, or
Yeah, Doug Kieran. I don't remember how I met Doug Kieran,
got it.
but we became fast pals
Hmm.
because he just come. I think he had just come out here from Rhode Island. He booked a club called the Living Room in Rhode Island, and
Okay.
he came out here and he was just booking all sorts of bands. Like he ended up doing like a Bad Religion L7 tour across the US.
Hmm.
And he put Bulimia Banquet on some of the shows and this is back when L7 would open for
Sure.
Bulimia Banquet, you know. So, and he plopped us on a few of the shows, and it was great having, Flipside and an album because Flipside put out the albums, not Epitaph.
Got it. Got it. Okay.
So it was really great having albums and being able to tour the US. And then we got to tour Europe. Doug Caron did a European tour.
Hmm.
And like he had done the Vandals, Bad Religion, um, MDC.
Great guy to hook up with because
Oh,
like he
no
really that's what
effects.
he dealed in, that kind of
Yeah.
music and knew where to plug it into Europe and stuff.
Well, he really like the tours that he did. Like, originally he gave us a tour was 3 months long. He was
Hmm.
like, "I made you the greatest tour, Jula. I made you the greatest tour," and it was like we were going to Greece, we were going like Yugoslavia. We were going to like places that people hadn't played.
Okay.
Like we played in Portugal, and at the time we were the first, like they said, first hardcore band in Portugal. And like we weren't your normal hardcore, but we had hardcore songs mixed with. Then we also had metal and just punk and weirdness. I mean, I think we would have been a good band to be on like Alternative Tentacles. Maybe back then we were more like a San Francisco kind of arty punk band.
Sure.
We probably fit more in that realm. And then I think later on, maybe we would have fit better on like AMREP, Amphetamine Reptile from Minneapolis. We were
Hmm.
more that kind of, we were definitely different and we pushed the limits. So with Doug Caron, we got to go on this tour. It ended up being 2 months, and that's where we met, or a month and a half, I think. We ended up meeting Fitzjoy, who's like the world's greatest roadie. Like he roadied for like everybody, Rancid, Offspring, NBC, everybody. Probably no effects. He was so good.
Hmm.
He was a Belgian guy. He was so good that the Offspring actually got him a green card so he could come to the
Really?
United States because he was such a
Wow.
great tour manager. And we met him, we fell in love with him, and I'm still friends with him to this day.
Very cool.
Great guy. But now he's a tour manager for like he was doing like divas, like Christina Aguilera, Katy Perry, like
Wow.
big divas. And then now
Sure.
I think he does like electronic music, big, big DJs that do
Wow.
huge shows. But that's his retirement job. He's totally
Yeah. Punk at
he
heart.
he took all the punk fans across.
Wow.
He was like 19 when I met him.
Wow.
Yeah.
Very cool. And then after Blink Me a Banquet disbanded, you started Bobsled with Sharon and Judy from Betty Blowtorch.
Yeah, actually, Bobsled was originally members from Bulimia Banquet when Bulimia Banquet disbanded.
Hmm.
And it was me and two guys originally, and that was the first lineup. And then when the guys left, I had met Judy from but Judy Molish is what her punk name is. I met Judy, and we got her in. I got her in playing drums, and then I got Patricia Klein from Quiver,
Hmm.
and I got Mia Ferrara, who had been in Bobsled, or pardon me, in Bulimia Banquet.
Hmm.
She joined. So it was us. And then when Patricia left, we got Sharon. And then when Bobsled broke up, um, we got when Bobsled broke up, that's Betty Blowtorch was starting, and Bobsled broke up.
Got it. Okay.
It was
Okay.
really, really a stressful time. Like I don't like to talk about it much. It was a
Sure.
stressful time. But I mean, I loved Bobsled, but the breakup of it was so sad.
Ah.
Yeah, it was a rough. It was such a great band. Like if Bobsled really got to tour,
Hmm.
like we did little Northwest tours. We toured Northwest and Southwest. We toured with FYP, little mini tours
Hmm.
that were great. But if we really got to tour, I think Bobsled could have really been something because it was
Hmm.
not, who was it? amazing musicians. All the girls were really cool.
Right on. Yeah.
And, and we were lumped into the Riot Girl thing, but
Okay.
it was the musicianship was definitely higher than some of the Riot Girl bands.
Hmm.
And it was a little more, we were a little older.
Okay.
Yeah. And we had been around for 10 years. Kind of like,
Sure.
7 was like Riot Girl, but like they never considered themselves a Riot Girl band
Right.
because we had been around for so much longer.
Right, right. But just maybe when like media or whoever started catching up to it, it was a kind of convenient blanket to kind of
Yeah,
overlay.
they like threw. I mean, there was like Riot Girl movies, and then they throw Bobsled and Bulimia in it, and then they have Hole and
Okay.
like I said,
Okay.
Luna Chicks, and Bratmobile or whatever, or
Hmm.
Kill. But like there was, I don't want to say we. It's not that we were more polished. We were just like we had more experience.
Sure.
We'd been around for 10 years, and we'd been
Sure.
playing, so we could actually play.
Okay.
And we were, in our 30s.
Right. Right. And in the 90s that you had a project with a punk rock auto harp.
Yes.
What was that?
Yeah, so I went to San Francisco and I saw this band called the Billy Nair Show that actually Doug Caron told me about,
Okay.
and it blew my mind. And this guy played auto harp in it, and I was like, I've got to get an auto harp. So I had a friend who worked at McCabe's, and I told his name was Jeff, and I told him I wanted to get an auto harp, and he showed up at my house like the next day, and he gave me an auto harp, and he's like, play this like you play your bass, played it. And I was like, what? So he gave me this auto harp.
Hmm.
And we experimented a lot with it, with doing cutting weird tunings for it and
Okay.
trying different ways to amplify it. Because at
Sure.
the time, the like electronic auto harps they were not really in existence yet.
Okay.
They
Okay.
they weren't easy to procure.
Okay.
So we modified modified the auto harp, and what I would do is I'd play it kind of in between songs if someone broke a string, or sometimes I'd write these funny little weird songs and I'd open with it, or sometimes the band couldn't play a gig and I'd just do it acoustically, like, oh, I'll just do an auto harp thing, and I'd play like funny punk rock songs or like FYP songs, or some No Effects songs
Hmm.
auto harp. But one of the people who really helped me with the auto harp was uh Eric Melvin from NoFX.
Sure.
Because we were hanging out and he said he loved the auto harp. He loved it. And he's like, here, try this. And he put the auto harp in a big muff through a big muff pedal and through his like Mesa Boogie amp. And then
Hmm.
all of a sudden this little auto harp went to like sounded like Sabbath. It was
Yeah,
crazy.
right. Wow. Uh-huh.
Of it. And it was like 36 strings of steel that was just like, and so when I would play it, I'd do like do do do, and it was all sweet. And then all of a sudden it would be like,
Yeah, just completely elevated from
yeah,
like
people would cheer. People would just,
wow.
yes, because it just kind of came out of nowhere. And I was gonna develop that into something, but
Sure.
then I ended up, I had a lot of fun with it, but then I ended up starting up my own business, and I just but there's people that are playing auto harp now, but I was the original punk rock auto harp.
Yeah, okay.
Billy Nair
Interesting.
was really cool, artistic, cool, unique music, but I was the first punk rock auto harpist.
That came later,
Take
yeah.
that, PJ Harvey, take that.
What an
Huh?
era in music though.
Oh my God, it was such a fun time.
Yeah.
I'm so fortunate. And back then you really had to look for music. Now it's just like you press a button and there's like, it's all there. You really
Yeah.
have to seek it out. And we used to go to like 5 shows a night.
Right.
You go to all the clubs, the Anti-Club, Al's Bar, uh,
Hmm.
the Shamrock, Raji's, like I said, the Zero. We'd go to, God, so many clubs. I mean, we'd go. When I say I went to 5 shows a night, I'm not kidding. Like
Yeah.
we were just seeing all our friends. We were all up front. We were there, and then we'd stay up till so late, and we were like vampires. We'd sleep and go to the Zero afterwards. Wake up when the sun was out. No, pardon me. We'd come out of the club when the
The
sun was
sun was
out.
coming.
Yeah, it was crazy. It was such a lifestyle,
Yeah.
and I had a blast. And like now, I don't think. it would be really hard to do something like that because it's just rents are so expensive.
Sure.
And you got to just work, work, work to be able to. I mean, even, $1,800 gets you like a room in a house. $1,500. Like then, like that would
Yeah.
get $1,500 would get you a whole house.
Right. Right. And I was going to ask you about that too, like what you thought about how music has changed in touring and stuff like that. Because you do hear stories like that, even touring, the cost of touring and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's so different with the internet, and with uh all the streaming. It's so different in that pretty much the record labels are not as important anymore. And if they do stuff, they just look at the numbers. They're just looking to see who's getting the views,
Right. Right.
who's getting whatever.
Sure.
And it's really it's a very different business.
Hmm.
But I think there's a lot. I think that the music scene right now, there's so many good bands right now. And there was a period there where there wasn't a lot.
Got it.
Um,
Mhm.
for me, there wasn't a lot that was exciting. I just kind of felt my brain atrophying, and all I wanted to
Hmm.
do was like play Scrabble. I didn't even want to go to show. I wanted to play Scrabble or like learn new things. I mean, I really, I went through a period where I was just getting bored of the bands because I've seen thousands and thousands of gigs.
Sure.
So as far as how it's changed now, like I said, I think it's online. And uh, I feel like, just kids always just have it like, boop, you hit your phone, boop, there it is. What band should I like? Boop, like whatever.
Yeah.
It's so
Yeah. And then
easy.
the algorithm feeds you, if you like that, you must like this or whatever, but it's not as
It's
organic.
so easy. And everyone talks about this, but like when I was in a few different music scenes. Like, I lived in Silver Lake, I lived in downtown. And like we were kind of part of the South Bay scene because we Bulimia Banquet lived in this practiced in the South Bay. But there were so many different scenes that we were parts of, but like you couldn't pinpoint us, just like how I was in school. Like you couldn't pinpoint, there's Jula Bell, she's blamp. Like
Right.
people knew me. Um, and it was cool to be able to go out and like see people and they'd be like, "Oh, you look familiar." And I'd be like, Are you in a band?" I'd say, "I'm in Bulimia Banquet or Bobsled
Hmm.
or Nip Drivers or Miss Derringer or Mark Spitz Freestyle," whatever band I was in at the time. And people would be like, "Oh, I just saw you guys last night," or "I just saw you guys last week. You're great," or blah, blah, blah. Now I'll see somebody and they'll say like, "You look familiar." I remember I was at the Fuck Yeah Festival
Okay.
and this girl was saying, "You look familiar. God, you look so familiar." And I was like, "Well, it must be my bands." I was just thinking, "You must know me from my bands." But I didn't say that, but I was, just thinking that. And then she was like, and then and we were online to get some food or something. And she's like, "Are you my friend's mom?" And I was just like, "No, no." I was like, it's over. It's over,
Oh,
or like I'll say, "Well, I was in this band, this band, this band," and the kids will just be like, blink, blink, like they don't.
right, right. Their
But then there's,
experience is just different in how they consume and stuff like that. It's not
yeah,
like what it was. Uh,
yeah, yeah. I think that Ginger is legendary, and I'm so impressed at how long she's had the magazine. So happy birthday, Ginger and Punk Globe, and looking forward to the 50th.
what are your upcoming projects and how can or anything that you have going on right now?
Well, I just sold my business, so I actually have a couple projects that I'm doing that I can't talk about yet that are
Understood. Yeah.
cool. But one thing I can talk about is I do have a bike gang called the Stingrays that's in Ventura. And we do a lot of rides to like Ojai and Ventura, and we're getting ready to do a really big ride, and that's really exciting. So a lot of things are on the horizon. I just did a project with Jennifer Finch and with Des Cadena that was really fun, but there's something else coming up that I can't talk about yet.
That's okay. And where can people find you?
I'm at julabell.com.
Okay.
You can see all kinds of stuff, what I've done, and all kinds of pictures and shows. And there's a lot in there.
Right on. Well, thank you so much. It's been awesome talking to you.
Oh, you too. It's really great to meet you. And great job on the Hive.
Ah,
The
thank you.
Hive, everybody.